Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. And today we've got an IPL and more specifically a Mumbai Indians special. So we're joined by their fielding coach, James Pamment. James, how you doing?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Neil. Yeah, nice to meet you online here and great to be here, part of your show.
So you joined MI in 2018, but before we actually get into that, let's talk about your career preceding that. You were actually born in the UK, Huddersfield. You were a very talented cricketer in your own right. Played representative cricket for Yorkshire. I'm correct in saying. Also very talented footballer. You had trials, or did you play for Leeds Youth and Bradford as well? Do you want to talk a little bit about your early days?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think that's where we're all we all get. A lot of people say, "Where were you born?" Or I tend to say, "Where were you made?" And I was very much made in Yorkshire, in Huddersfield. My family were all sort of born and bred around that region, and my father was a very passionate football person, but also very closely connected to a very famous village cricket club called Lascelles Hall. Only a small place, but at one point in time, a lot of players came from Lascelles Hall to represent Yorkshire. I think at one point there were 6 to 8 of them back at the turn of the century days when the cotton mills were very much in existence around that area, and guys could get time off from work and go and play cricket. So quite a famous small club, and I was sort of very fortunate to be brought up in that environment, very traditional. And I learned all my cricket through my family involvement at Lascelles Hall, and developed through the leagues and through the age groups, and progressed to Yorkshire age group teams, which was always a challenge to make those teams, given the number of boys every year who were sort of challenging to make those teams. So I went through the 13s, the 15s, and then the 19s, but never progressed on towards playing for the first team in official cricket. I played a lot of what they called club and ground games, a lot of trial games for Yorkshire seconds and Yorkshire 11s, but never actually made it into the first team. But that was all part of my learning process. Dovetail with that was also a passion for football as well, and in similar respects, I had lots of opportunities to trial with professional clubs. Spend a bit of time with Bradford City, spend a bit of time with Sheffield Wednesday, and spend a bit of time just playing a couple of games for Leeds United as a youth, which is very much on a trial basis. I was a goalkeeper.
Yes, you said you made the move over to New Zealand. You played first-class cricket for Auckland, played a handful of games. How do you sum up your professional career playing, and then the move into coaching? You actually moved into football coaching, I'm correct in saying as well. You had time involved with New Zealand football before going back into cricket. Do you want to talk a little bit about that period as well?
Auckland had just lost a number of players through retirement. Guys like John Wright, Ian Smith, of course, the 1992 World Cup, they retired. Shortly after that, they lost some players like Trevor Franklin, Jeff Crow had just retired just prior to that as well. So they'd lost a lot of players, and they were looking to rebuild, and I was obviously new on the scene, playing really well, committed myself long-term to staying in New Zealand with my wife, Cecilia, and obviously the family was developing. So I got an opportunity which, I thoroughly enjoyed. Perhaps wasn't quite in a position to maximise that in terms of being, having the time to develop my game, especially as a batsman, because, I was working a lot as well. A lot of the younger guys who were given the opportunity around the same time as me were either studying or they were staying at home, and they had way more time to develop themselves in terms of their games. And they could, get on. Craig Spearman was one who started at the same time as me and went on and had a very good career in New Zealand and obviously ultimately in the UK as well. When I moved down to Mount Maunganui from Auckland, where we live now still to this day, it was a football decision. I got an opportunity to step into the New Zealand National League, which wasn't a professional league, but was a semi-professional league, and I played a few games for them towards the back end of the previous season, once the cricket season had finished, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'd missed football because it was part of my DNA and part of my upbringing. So, yeah, we made a decision as a family to move down to this region. and I made a decision just to step away from cricket for a while and step into football. So yeah, that's how I guess the transitions then went on from the mid-90s, 1996 through to about 2008, where I hopped between football and cricket, between playing, between coaching, and then eventually sort of cricket's taken over this last 12 years or so, and I've become a professional coach since 2008. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed all the opportunities and experiences that I had in between.
And then you also had involvement in New Zealand cricket. You were involved in the Under-19 World Cup, and then the opportunity to come and work for Northern Districts. Is that when it all kind of changed for you?
Yeah, that's what I say, Neil. Yeah, so 2008, I was sort of identified. I was coaching locally in my region, the Bay of Plenty. There's 6 regions that make up Northern Districts. Bay of Plenty is one of those. We had a sustained period of success, and I was coaching that team at the time. Some very talented players coming through the ranks at that time. Some very good young players. Trent Bolt, Kane Williamson were involved in those early years before they went on, and obviously meteorically went through the system very quickly. Some very good local players who also went on and represented Northern District first class level. So, we were having a bit of success over a sustained period, and Northern District obviously noticed that and invited me to start getting involved with their age group teams. And then they invited me to take their A team, which is their second team. And then that led into full-time employment with New Zealand Cricket around 2008. I was employed as what they call a high-performance network coach, with a responsibility for developing all the promising young players coming through the Northern Districts region. So that's how that morphed from, I guess, a part-time role to a full-time role. Like you say, at the time I was taking the New Zealand Under-19 team as well. We went to the World Cup along with Matt Horn and Paul Wiseman in 2012, and we missed out to India in the semi-final, but it was a very successful tournament for us. We developed a number of young players during that time that have gone on, and Ishodi, I guess, would be the standout one. Will Young's just starting to make his way now. He's a New Zealand contracted player. He was our captain. But also there's a large number of that group who've gone on, and they're still playing first-class cricket now, which is quite unique in New Zealand, because I guess the transition rate from playing international under-19 cricket to successful first-class careers is very low in New Zealand. But out of that group, there would be 85% of those guys either had a decent career or still playing now, which is really encouraging. And then from there, obviously working very closely with Northern District, taking their A team, as I said, and an opportunity came in 2013 when the incumbent coach retired and moved on to have a crack at trying to secure that role at Northern District. And I was very fortunate that they thought I had the skill set to take it on, and I thoroughly enjoyed that for 5.5 years. Yeah.
So was there one game in 2014 that particularly stood out? I'm talking more about that game against Mumbai. I think it was the Champions League game. And then your team just put on an absolute clinic when it came to fielding. And is it something that probably just put the seed in the owner's mind?
It did, and I can remember having a very vivid conversation after that game when we were very good that night. We beat Mumbai. We qualified top out of that group at the Champions League up in Raipur, and I can certainly remember, I guess, the guy who's my boss now, having a conversation with me back at the hotel in 2014, saying that he wouldn't forget that performance that he just watched by Northern Districts and the park, and that potentially one day you might be able to come and work for us. And I guess in the euphoric state of the moment, it was almost sort of dismissed by me as fair enough, whatever sort of style. I was really passionate about the group that I had, and what we were going to try and achieve over the next little while. And the comment was sort of lost on me a little bit. But I did have some contacts with Mumbai. Corey Anderson was obviously part of the Mumbai Indians, and he was one of our players. So you get to know quite a little bit. When I first went to New Zealand cricket in the high performance role, John Wright was the boss of us. So I had a relationship with John, and John was the coach at that time of Mumbai Indians, and he's still with Mumbai Indians in the scouting capacity now. So, there's always been some links to Mumbai. With Tim Southey's been up there and played as well, so I guess we've always known what's been going on closer with Mumbai Indians. But that performance that evening didn't do me any harm as well. I had to work pretty hard in 2018 to showcase that I had the talents and the skills and the knowledge to secure the role once they decided to make a change when John T. Rhodes moved on. But like you say, I don't think that did me any harm at all. That great performance by our boys that night.
And when the call came in 2018, was it just a no-brainer to take the role?
And it wasn't a no-brainer, no, because like I say, I just signed a new contract with Northern District, and I'd been there for 2 terms of 2 years. So I was just starting a new 2-year contract. I was excited by the potential of the group that we had and what we could achieve. We'd had some success. We'd won some trophies. We developed a lot of players that had gone on and played for New Zealand. And I was really excited about the next group that were coming through, because I thought that 4 or 5 of them could go on and represent the Black Caps as well, and of which 3 have very quickly. Scott Kugelheim, Tim Seifert and Daryl Mitchell were all part of that next group coming through that I was really excited about. So it wasn't a no-brainer, but once I'd gone up there and met them and presented, I guess, some of my philosophies and listened to where they wanted to take their fielding program. And I'm not just employed in IPL either for Mumbai Indians. I go and do some development work as well, which I think they saw that quality in me, and it was certainly something that I wanted to continue. I just didn't want to become, I guess, a T20 or an IPL specialist fielding coach. I actually wanted to share some of my knowledge, philosophies and passion for youth development and some of the younger uncapped players that come into those squads, to be allowed to spend some time with them. And I do that. So I go up on a number of visits throughout the year to Mumbai.
Yes, that's part of your role, isn't it? So I think you're contracted to just over 100 days. Was the IPL's a 2-month tournament? So around that, you go and spend time with these groups of players. And is it just a coaching clinics? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is coaching. But I think what that has allowed me to do is to build stronger relationships, because then, I guess in IPL time, it's very busy. It's a fantastic tournament where there's a lot of pressure floating around. There's a lot of intensity, and it's very hard to build those meaningful relationships because it's all about practice, travel, and play. Whereas these other visits, I can get to know the players. I can get to understand what they want to try and achieve with their games, and I'm just one of a number. A lot of these, obviously, young men have got their own coaches that they've had for a long number of years, and they've got their mentors that they look towards. But I'm just another person that can get alongside them and help them. And I always find that takes time to build that relationship, so I understand them, they understand me, and I can give some ideas, and also I can work hard alongside them. So I thoroughly enjoy those trips. They are very rewarding. Yeah.
So there's a general consensus that goes around cricket. You hear a lot of commentators say that if a team is good or bad when it comes to batting or bowling, that kind of level of performance can fluctuate to a certain extent. But when it comes to fielding, that is something that a team can really improve on, regardless of how their standards are with the bat or ball. Is that something you agree with?
It is to some respects, yes, it is. Yeah, the attitude aspect, and the desire to want to be fully committed to the cause is something that you can control. But, it's very easy to say those words, and then if you've got some fieldsmen who are not very athletic, I guess they may be extremely specialist in their core skill, which may be batting or maybe bowling, you're never going to leave those guys out of the team because, they don't put as much, I guess, attitude or desire into their fielding. But definitely, if somebody wants to improve, if an individual wants to improve his fielding, the commitment and the attitude is the key part of that. Yeah, and you can go away and do that. But I guess the cash cry at MI from Haylor, who's the head coach, is energy. He wants to see energy. So it's important that, when I'm tailoring my training sessions, whether it's with individuals or with the team group collective, it displays energy. And that's the word that we promote, I guess, at MI is energy in the field, which is not, not uncommon. I'm sure there's a number of other teams and a number of other, groups use those phrases as well. But it's important that you do try and establish a work ethic which mirrors that, and then you can start working on the basic techniques that need to underpin that. It's great to have energy, but you've actually got to have skills as well if you want to be effective.
And then talk us through that first year, 2018. Obviously, you have the Netflix documentary following your movements. How was that in terms of having a camera putting your face in moments that a lot of people don't see? After defeats, during victory, etc. Team bonding sessions. How was that kind of all access, production and involvement as such? How was that? Something different?
Yeah, it was obviously very different. Yeah, and I guess I was a little bit fortunate that my work wasn't either as compromised or it wasn't as intrusive around what I was doing because, I guess nobody really knew me, so it would have been more challenging, I guess, for Mahala or for Shane Bond or for Rohit or some of the key performers within the group. But for me, yeah, I mean, everything was so eye-opening for me in the first year anyway, because it was my first year at IPL. And while I'd had a little insight into cricket in India, either through a previous tour or through the Champions League up in 2014, it was not on the same magnitude as what experienced at 2018 in my first IPL. And like you say, with the cameras there as well, there's a lot of things that were, I guess, a little bit false to the environment that I've previously been in, because there's a lot of photo shoots and a lot of interviews, but I guess I was fortunate that I could just go about my work a little bit in the background because I didn't really have a profile, and I guess I wasn't front and center too much. But yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the whole documentary actually, but I've had a lot of feedback from people who have watched it, and it's given them a really good insight into what life at the IPL is like, but also some of the background stories. A lot of my friends and associates watched that and said they got a great deal out of watching, where the boys had come from, some of the background stories of the Panja boys or Rohit, where he came from, or Ishan Kishan. So I think that was almost probably more interesting than actually the cricket side of it. But what you do get is the real sense of how passionate the Indians are about cricket and how important, a tournament like the IPL is just to the general society. And that's something that I've really enjoyed while I've been over there, is just the passion for cricket and the genuine nature of the people.
And then in terms of performance on the field, 2018 is a difficult campaign. Obviously, you had the early losses, but then you put some wins together, just missed out on the playoffs. But then 2019, you win it in the last over. Sum up the emotions and that winning moment as such. Big party after?
Yeah, there was a massive party afterwards. Yeah, and it went on for probably 48 hours. Yeah, once we travelled back to Mumbai. But yeah, I mean, 2018, I think there've been a number of seasons where people kept saying that, MI traditionally was slow starters and everybody was waiting for us to get going. We'll get going at some point. And I think we were just looking for a little bit of a catalyst, a little bit of leadership. And I think we won a game, I think, early, but we were certainly only 1-1 from the first six. And Rohit really stood up. We played against Chennai up in Pune. Rohit stood up and played fantastically well. And we won that game. And we got on a little bit of a run. And really, we should have made the finals. We had to beat Delhi on the last day. And they were already out of the competition. And while they put their best foot forward on that day, it was a game there for us to lose, not them to win. And we didn't play well at all, and we lost. So we missed out on that last day. 2019, I just sensed a different atmosphere, a different attitude in and around the group. Nothing that the coaching staff were doing differently. Just I thought the players brought a more determined attitude, and it was a very good campaign. Yes, there were a few trip-ups along the way. It's 2020 cricket. Somebody has a day against you and you just sort of doff your cap to them and say, well played, let's move on. But I thought we were far more resilient during those times in 2019. The balance of our attack, I think, was a little bit better with obviously Lasif being back in there as a player and not on the coaching staff. And he proved his quality right to the very end of the tournament. And And while you never, get too overconfident when you're playing against CSK and MS Dhoni, that I just couldn't see us losing, and even right down to that last ball, and even going into the last over, I guess it was theirs to lose, and we needed to do something special. But I just had a sense of calm and thought, well, we're going to win this anyway. But fortunately, between them, they made the right decision on the last ball, and Leslie executed unbelievably, and we picked up the trophy, the smallest of margins. But I don't think anybody could argue we were the best team in 2019 and fully deserved to win the competition.
And then when it comes to the auction time, obviously we've seen via this documentary a lot of analysts involved, coaches involved, a lot of backroom stuff that we don't even never heard of. Can you talk a little bit about the whole process? What are you actually looking at as a coaching staff and a team? What you look at? What kind of processes that you have to go through in terms of going through a list of players, etc. Little word on the auction. How it works?
Yeah. It's not a massive part of my brief, Neil. To be honest, we kept updated, but and I guess they touch base with me around specific New Zealand players. But like you say, you're quite rightly, you've seen on the documentary there just how thorough they are with the process. There's also a number of scouts around Indian domestic cricket, who are watching a lot of cricket, and I guess, the Syed Mushtaq, the Vijay Azar. I was involved in the tournament just before we went into lockdown out in Navi Mumbai, which is a very good tournament, the DY Patel tournament. Very active with scouts watching for the young talent coming through, and not necessarily the young talent, but just the developing talent. And then it all goes, I guess, part of the conundrum, and they have lots of discussions and they try and work out what is the best strategy for the auction. But like I say, it's not part of my core business, so I'm not, in it thoroughly. But from a coaching point of view, what I've been really impressed with is Mahela is very clear on what his template looks like and what the personnel he requires for that template. So there's a nice marry up between, I guess, the tactician that is Mahela, which is an outstanding cricket brain, and the marry up with the owners, which I think in some of the other, franchises, from what I've observed, you perhaps don't get that. You get a lot of emotional buy-in, and they don't really fit into a game plan or a plan that can be established from the coaching staff. I think that I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Mumbai from that perspective, but I guess in terms of detail, I can't go into too much because it's not my core business.
Then when it comes to the actual playing 11, would it be fair to say that Mahela has the final say, but do you have a voice as well in selection?
Well, we're all part of the discussion. Myself and Shane Bond and Mahela and coaching staff, we sit down and we do plans. One of the really good things I thought about the campaign in 2019 is we just didn't stick with the same team. We picked teams to suit conditions, and we picked teams to suit opposition, to try and beat opposition. So there is that tactical element around selection. I'm a Mahela, Rohit, the ownership, the senior players are all part of that process. But I don't know who has the final say, but I'm sure Mahela has a very, very strong say in that because, he is a very dominant figure in that group.
And who are the leaders in the team?
Yeah, it's obviously the captain is a strong leader. Pollard is a very strong leader, and he covered up last year, I think, in a couple of games when Rohit was out. He came in and covered in the role of captaincy and did a very good role. Kieran's a very strong leader. Through example and obviously through words. He doesn't speak a lot, but when he speaks, he always speaks very clearly and speaks sense. And then some of the younger guys are coming through. Obviously, Quinton came in last year and showed his leadership skills from behind the stumps. And obviously, since IPL 2019, he's now gone on and been, I guess, anointed with South African captaincy. So that leadership quality is in there as well, which they've identified. So I was really impressed with the contributions that he made from a leadership point of view last year. Jasprit, Lasif, they lead in their own ways, mainly through example, but good preparation as well, very thorough in their preparation and very well planned. And younger players do see that. They don't just see this talented player going out and performing. They see all the planning that goes on in the background from these guys who have got great records and are really proud of their performances. And then
Yeah,
the
I was just
Pandya
going to
boys.
say, do they set example? Because is the hardest
Yeah,
part of the whole IPL process the actual getting a team to bond together over such a short period of time, and seeing the senior players, the more experienced players, set an example? That must be one of the keys, isn't it?
absolutely. It's a great learning environment, and as you know, and I guess in Indian culture, the juniors really revere and respect the seniors. So if your seniors are showing great examples and good practice, then the youngsters follow very easily. And we're very fortunate at MI that we do have a strong sense of togetherness. There are, I guess, activities that are created where we do spend a lot of time together, but also during IPL, rest is important as well because it's quite an intense competition. But we do take opportunities when it's relevant to get together and socialise and get to know each other. And I know that the younger players really value those opportunities to spend time with those senior guys away from the cricket side of it, where you can catch somebody in a little bit more of a relaxed moment as well and have that quiet chat that perhaps you can have at training or when you're travelling or preparing for a game. So that's a really good thing that I've discovered about MI is they do value their people and they do take opportunities to try and not only develop you, but to give you learning opportunities.
And how instrumental are the owners in that aspect in terms of the off-field activities? You see from the documentary again, they're very passionate about their cricket. They come into the changing room, say their words, etc. But away from the field, they also ensure that team bonding as well. How important have they been in this whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I say, they care. They genuinely care, and some of the stories that I've heard from before being involved, and some of the things that I've witnessed since I have been involved, about how they really care for players that have moved on and are now in other environments or perhaps not involved in IPL, just how they still care for those people. So they do have a sense of care and they do have a sense of, I guess, community. They obviously run very successful businesses and a number of businesses, and they probably realised at an early time that in order to be successful, you have to value your people and treat them with respect and like I say, help them to get better and challenge them to get better, but also create opportunities where you can relax and socialise, and give it a sense of normality. And they do that very well. Yeah, absolutely. They're pivotal in that.
And the ambitions for the team, obviously, we're not sure what's going to be happening with the IPL this year. Again, you're just going for back-to-back titles. Is that the aim? Ultimate aim?
Absolutely, yeah, and there's obviously been a big push for it because I think historically we've seen MI won in 2013, 2015, 2017, and 2019. So they're very keen to try and break that cycle of winning once every 2 years. So there was a big push on trying to win this year to try and retain our title. We felt that we put a very good squad together. A lot of similarity to last year, but we felt we'd improved on the squad. With the additions of Nathan Coulter-Nile and the addition of Trent Boult, and we felt that we'd strengthened, and then we were pretty keen to break that cycle. And I know there was a lot of work that's been put in, from a coaching point of view. We had some very good meetings in early March in advance of what would have been our pre-tournament camp, where there was a lot of good stuff discussed and planned at that camp. But now, obviously, we're all just sort of sitting back, waiting that we do get a tournament this year, and I'm sure we will. But there's nothing certain at this stage. But we're feeling a good position to move forward and give it a crack for 2020.
And in terms of your own personal development as a coach, I know you had an interim stint with the USA as well. I'm not sure how long you've got left on your Mumbai contract, but what are the kind of ambitions you've got as a coach moving forward?
Yeah, I've got 2 years left with Mumbai, Neel. This season, 2020 and 2021 are the two years that I've got left on my contract. I hope that I do a good enough job for them to invite me to come back and experience some more cricket in India. In terms of my ambition purely lies with, just doing a good job, just trying to keep upskilling myself, just trying to keep learning, just trying to keep building relationships with the new players that I find myself working with, and just generally trying to keep advancing, really. I've got no goals, in terms of I'd like to take this team, or I'd like to take that team, or I'd like to move into this area. For me, it's just about continually trying to improve and trying to help players who want to be helped to get better. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with the USA. Like you say, it was just a short interim role. It was supposed to be based around 2020 cricket, but I guess unfortunately from a performance point of view in that 2020 arena, we didn't do as well as what we would have liked. So we didn't qualify for the world qualifiers in Dubai, which meant that we didn't progress on towards the potential T20 World Cup, which should have been held in Australia in October and November. But past that, they asked me to stay on and do a couple of series in one-day cricket. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously I took on the role of the interim head coach and met a group of players that, wanted a little bit of direction. And I guess putting my head coach's hat back on, went back and put some principles in place. And we had a successful time of it. I think we won 6 out of the first 8 games that we played, which was really commendable for that group of players at that level. But, perhaps if I didn't have a job, I might have thrown my hat in the ring and wanted to commit to spending more time with this group of players. But I was very fortunate that I got a job that I'm very passionate about, a job that I thoroughly enjoy, and I guess I didn't want to compromise that by walking away from that role. So yeah, more opportunities like that hopefully will come in the future if I'm in a position to take them. But at the moment, I'm extremely happy with my decision to be working for MI for the next 2 years.
And one final question: who's the best fielder you've worked with?
Well, it is a great question because it comes with a number of, I guess, different qualities and different skills. I worked with 2 young fellas in their formative years, Trent Boult and Kane Williamson, who I've had great joy in watching them perform some great feats, on the cricket field for New Zealand. But then obviously when you get into the international arena and you start working with guys like Martin Guptill, a little short stint with New Zealand, and Martin's a fantastic athlete, great fielder, very natural with his movements. And then you get to go to IPL and you can work with Polly. Polly's got some unbelievable skills for a big man, how he can move and he gets low, and obviously everything in the air that comes to him, it's like, just picking an apple off a tree, those massive hands that he's got. And I think, Hardik has got the potential to be anything in this game. I've seen him do some incredible things, all very natural, not trained. He's obviously a great athlete, and some of the catches I've seen him take in games and in trainings. And I think just with continual desire and improvement that he could be something very special. But there's a number of guys who really value their fielding, and when you see something done, that's incredible, and it's all because they do their basics really well, So yeah, I'm very fortunate to be working and learning as well from a number of talented young guys who want to keep pushing it, and I'm happy to keep trying to push them.
Perfect. James, really appreciate your time. What an insight. Thank you very much.
No problem, Neil. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Nice to get to talk to you.
You too. So Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, James Pamment. Thank you.